Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Laura Hanson with Connect My Brain. We are so glad that you are tuning in to our series on collaborative health. So I have been introducing you to many different colleagues associated with brain and body rehabilitation specialists. And now I thought I'd like to expand this topic a bit because there's lots of people I know that are involved in collaborative health. So what is collaborative health? Collaborative health is either you're a parent and you're looking at a team of people, or you're a professional and you're working with other professionals, or it's a combination of both. So today you might know this wonderful woman's face, Kelly Hayner. She's a very close friend of mine, and she is my Young Living Essential Oils upline. She is the woman of oils, and I'm so glad I'm on her team because I learned so much from her. And in thinking about this series that we're involved in, she has to be a part. So Kelly, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Good. So let's just dive right into it. You and I have always been on Facebook Lives together, talking about oils, talking about brains. So I wanted you to come on to this series because you use collaborative health. So why don't you tell us, what's your definition of collaborative health?
Well, I'd like to start by saying I didn't know there was collaborative health till about 15 years ago. And then I found myself in the world of collaborative health, but I didn't know that's what it was called or what it was. I just realized that due to having a son early and complications from that and developmental things we needed to address, I found myself in collaborative conversations with a number of practitioners, doctors, therapists, otherwise, right? And It became clear for me early on in our medical health developmental journey, if you want to call it that I didn't have like one person that could say, this is what you do and this is how you do it, and you need to do it for X amount of time and then you'll see this result. I was collaborating extensively, I felt, maybe because I was new to it, with a variety of practitioners. I felt like I was acting, to give you an analogy, more like a quarterback, and I was taking all this feedback from different people that had different expertise that my son needed, and had to come up with an approach that included what we were going to do, when we were going to do it, how we were going to fit it all in. And then sometimes was faced with decisions that there wasn't a clear black and white answer. Should we do it or should we not do it? So this practitioner told me this, I tell this doctor this, I get more information from them. And then as a parent, while I didn't feel I had all this expertise under my head, I had a lot of experts I was talking to, and I would collaborate with them and then come up with the best path for my son. Whether it be what therapies we were going to be doing, what supplements we were going to be on, what maybe alternative health choices we were going to be making and trying. A lot of things we were doing for him health-wise that helped him. There wasn't a specific study that said this works and this is why it works and this is how it works. So I found myself in an investigative, researching, collaborative kind of system with everybody I was working with, and that's what served my son best. And that was not a role I went into comfortably or confidently. I think many parents that find themselves on these developmental journeys with these children, like my son, don't expect to be in that situation. But you also, as a parent, know your child best, your home best, and then you begin to quickly understand, I can talk to all these experts. I can understand their not only educational knowledge and expertise, but their clinical knowledge and expertise. And then I can take all that information and then I can help get an approach that works for our family and my child. Right. So that particular child is 15 years old. So I am 15 years in of that collaborative journey, so to speak.
So prior to that time, would you consider yourself that you were more involved in traditional approaches to healthcare?
Oh, definitely. I was the person that found the seasoned person for whatever it was that had the most experience, done the most things. And I went to them and I said, tell me what to do and tell me how to do it. And I didn't do a lot of research. And I just assumed from a traditional mainstream perspective, if you want to call it that, that I had gone to the expert. I'd found somebody everybody recommends, and they would always know what's best.
Gotcha.
I have a good
Oh,
friend.
but you just said something so interesting. You got referral, you went to them, they know what's best. But what I heard you say before that, when we were talking about collaboration, you actually took that position. I know what's best, and I'm doing it in a logical manner. It's not like you're trying to be all of those entities, but you know your child, you know your home. And then as you get these educational experiences, you start to resonate in a particular direction. So you actually made a thought change in the way that you approached your health.
Well, what made it click for me to be confident in moving that direction, like I had to do it, even though I didn't feel comfortable doing it, what made it click for me was I realized I've got 6 different practitioners or doctors I'm working with. They each have their own area of expertise. I can't put them around a conference table and us all come up with the right solution together. I'm the connector for my child. I have to connect every conversation, and sometimes it requires multiple. Well, this person told me this, so I need to go back to this practitioner and say, okay, would this work based on what I learned from the other person? It wasn't always cut and dried. It wasn't always very black and white. It could be a little messy. It could be go here, come here, go there. But it became very clear I was a connection point for my child to this network of people that we were needing to use and rely on. And I had to become...
I couldn't hear you for just a second.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I had to become a researcher. I had to become somebody that was comfortable networking and asking questions I didn't even know to ask. Like, say, what else have I missed? Is there anything you can think of? But it triggered for me probably a year into the process that I had to start owning at a high level our path and our decisions that were associated with that path. There wasn't one practitioner equipped to do that for us because there were so many multiple things we were addressing.
Yes, and I think that's one part why I love what we're doing up at BBRS. There's so many different people under one roof. That's what I've always wanted to do here at Connect My Brain, because exactly what the parent, patient, child is going through. And you've got to be so many different things to your child, then to also have to be the liaison between all the professionals. It's a lot of work.
I worked full time. Prior to that, I stopped working because that became my full-time job. And that was a decision that we made as a family, my husband and I made, and we made that thoughtfully. And we considered if we could handle that, both from time, finances, everything. It's no small effort or job, if you want to call it that, to move that direction. I often look back and one could argue, it's easier just to rely on one person and do everything they say. But I know in our journey, our son, child would not have been served as well as he has if we had taken what would have been considered the easy path.
Or the traditional path. A lot of times that's what I typically kind of convey, that path is considered the traditional path. So then, so you went through this 15 years, you've been going through this, but in some area or some part of your journey, how did the essential oils get into this?
Well, since we're talking about traditional versus maybe alternative paths, one of the things that became apparent with our child was that he was very sensitive to things that weren't natural, that might have more chemicals involved in them. Some people call them toxins versus non-toxins, depending on what terminology you like. And foundationally, we immediately realized food made an impact on his development and behavior and cognitive. And so we started there. We started with, we knew we needed OT and PT. There were physical things from fine motor and gross motor we needed to address. Truly, I felt like God put people in my path that I listened to, thankfully, because I had no background in anything alternative prior to this. So we had an OT that looked at me and said, are you open to some non-traditional methods and doing some blood work and understanding if your child has some deficiencies? And so we went from food to we went to doing very detailed blood work to look at deficiencies and how we target using supplements, not medicine for those. And that opened a whole pathway into somebody that introduced me to, hey, essential oils can be very good for supporting immune health. And I was like, oh, really? And guess what? There's studies on essential oils. There's a lot of studies,
Yes,
actually.
there are.
So I was like, okay, I was on a search for anything that could help us that wouldn't be harmful. And I started searching and joining groups of people that had used them for years. And I started understanding how to use them. I've got a whole library of books. I am a book lover anyway, so it made sense to just buy books and read and understand more. And it became clear there wasn't a prescriptive piece to essential oils. There were things that can be suggested that work for 80% of the people, so to speak. So I had to start trying things, but it also became clear if I was using a quality oil that had no synthetics and that was pure, we weren't going to be causing any harm. And so even though I felt like there's a little experimentation along the way, what we were using wasn't harmful. So it just, it's now 8+ years of using essential oils in our family. So, and we feel very comfortable with the approaches and things we decide to do and how we decide to use them and how much we decide to use and how often. And it became clear that essential oils were a very amazing support tool for us. Because one of the things that happened with my son is while we had, he has cerebral palsy, so there's a brain injury that affects his muscles. It basically tells certain areas of his body to do the opposite of what it should be doing. Along with that, the easiest way I try to describe it in layman's terms is whenever there's an insult to the brain, the body operates at a deficit. You can probably do a better description for everybody in just a second. But because of that deficit, it made sense to me he created inflammation maybe when others didn't in response to things that were chemical or not natural. When you have inflammation in your body and you've got things that are bothering your body, then your immune system takes a hit. It's more susceptible, right? Yeah. So early on, we used essential oils just from a support the immune system standpoint, because we had one year we had strep throat 6 times and we were on antibiotics and it was not going away. Obviously, a traditional approach was not the solution because it wasn't working. It was never leaving his body. Basically, about every 6 to 8 weeks, we were on antibiotics. So early on, essential oils became a tool for us to support his body from an immune standpoint to get it to a stage where it could deal with more of the things that were coming into his environment without being susceptible to getting sick every time he turned around. So we started from an immune standpoint. I would like to always talk to people when I teach classes or people ask me questions. What I learned years into it because I was like so focused on the immune piece and how does it relate to health and more medical items. I learned early on how our emotional part of us is so closely tied to our physical part and how emotions manifest into physical issues. And so then I started going down the research path of, how do essential oils support emotions? Well, guess what? They support them fantastically. Amazingly. Like when you find the right combo for things you're trying to address, it's like amazing. I mean, so the path went from looking at an immune health standpoint and how we support that to, hey, we've got some emotional stuff. I mean, we've been through a lot medically over the years. And so while we've done cleanup work medically, health-wise, immune system, it's left an emotional imprint on my child, right? So how do we dig into this tool? I already trust support and I've seen work, but dig into this tool, these essential oils, and use them to support that emotional component. And then that emotional component was like another layer of getting his physical even stronger, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So that's what got us there.
That's just That's just fascinating. And you do a lot of teaching with essential oils, and you've really gone from supporting your family's journey to now taking this out even into the community,
Yes,
correct?
I'm not somebody that's got this some big crazy big business. There's a lot of people that do this and have a crazy big business built around it, and I think that's amazing. I focus on who are my people that need help that I know. I rely on word of mouth. If somebody like has enjoyed, the essential oils and find the tools that I put out there for education helpful, I rely on word of mouth where people say, hey, you might just give Kelly a call. So I excel and enjoy and get satisfaction from really a lot of one-on-one interactions, a lot of, hey, do you have a group that would like me to come talk? I'd be glad to sit with a small group and just teach y'all and answer your questions. I am not, I always like to say I'm not the big social media influencer. I do post things. I try to educate and do things so people can find them easily. But my strength, what I enjoy and what I find works best with my clients is to have some more of the one-on-one interactions, whether it's quick text messages with questions, a phone call, or it's coming by. And if it's, someone locally doing a biometric scan to see maybe what oils the body would prefer, or just teaching a class in somebody's home or over Zoom for a group that is seeking to learn and they've got a particular interest. Because here's the thing, the world of essential oils is pretty big. I just described physical and emotional ways it can support the body. So it can seem overwhelming. So I try to meet people where they are with what they're trying to address with their particular priorities. And that may be health related. It may be emotion related. It can fall in either category. So I try to meet them where they are. I always talk to people about what we've learned as a family, how food is foundational, and whatever you're trying to do, it's going to be really hard to move things in a positive direction if you're not addressing the food piece. One of the things I also try to do is I have over the course of 15 years, have a lot of wonderful people I love and trust. You're one of those people. So I often refer and recommend based on how complex the item is they're coming to me for of, hey, you might want to talk to Dr. Hansen about this. This is an area where she excels, has expertise, and really has tools in place to diagnostically give you so much more. And that doesn't mean I won't help support you with the oils, and they might not be a tool.
Right,
you can still use our oils along the way. She uses oils, but you might need a little more. So I do feel like there's a piece of me that's called to connect the people that come to me.
Yes, that's
Yes.
the collaborative
Yeah, so I
approach.
connect them to practitioners
Absolutely.
that I know, and because I don't ever come with we've got all the answers, but I've got 15 years of figuring things out, and we can have some conversations, and then maybe what I've learned over 15 years will decrease your learning curve, so you can jump down the path a little faster than I did.
Yeah. Well, that's the part I love about all the people that I collaborate with. I don't think anybody can have all of the answers. But I think when we come together and we talk about it, we brainstorm. And I think the most important piece to that is the individual is in the middle and we are supporting them all the way around, right? I thought maybe what we could do too is maybe kind of unpack a particular situation. I know one of the most popular cases that I work on is kids going through attention issues. Okay. And we can do brain maps and see the brain waves, and it's very common patterns of too much theta in the front of the brain, so they can't really think and pay attention. Well, if I took that child and that's all I did was plop them in front of the neurofeedback, most of the time, mechanically, once you sit down and kind of chill out, it's very easy for those slow waves just to come right to the surface and take over the whole session. So one of the things that I use when I am working with kids that I can actually watch and see those big theta waves coming up going, okay, they're getting drowsy. I go get some Vetiver.
Yes.
And I put it on a cotton ball And I have them every now and then. I just want you to take a little sniff. And I'll tell you, if you don't know that, and I'm not really talking to the audience right now, if you don't know that these oils can cross the blood-brain barrier, there is a lot of research. I mean, talking about research papers that literally show they do cross the blood-brain barrier.
And
the molecule.
Most people don't realize. And so when you can cross the blood-brain barrier and you don't have synthetics or anything harmful, it can support the body to do what it needs to do. Prescriptive drugs are too large in size, particle-wise. They cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. So you're asking yourself, why do they work? Well, they have to trick the body into doing what it needs to do. So the reality of the size of essential oil particles is that ability to cross the blood-brain barrier supports the body in a way that it almost teaches itself to do what it needs to do the right way, versus tricking it and then maybe being dependent on it needing to be tricked all the time, or tricking it and you get a result now that works for a little bit but comes back again later. So that is one of the beauties of when you are using essential oils, especially like you said, like vetiver, that can be just amazing for attention support. And if somebody came to me, asked me questions like that, depending on the level of severity, I'd be like, Dr. Hansen is your person. I would also be like, if you don't fix the food, the oils are going to have a harder time working. It's like an uphill battle, right?
Well, the food is one of the biggest culprits of all time. And one of my sayings when I'm talking to parents that I will always bring up, look, I could be so fantastic at all the therapies that I do, but man, if that chemistry is off, stuff is just not going to stick. And chemistry relates to food. It relates to what's the state of health you're in right now, and how are you going to support it? But if you constantly have a battle, as you're saying, it's just not going to happen. Yeah. But when you use the oils and we're smelling these, this is a direct pathway to the brain. Oh, yes. And there's nothing blocking your sense of smell going up here to the brain, and it goes to the thalamus. It's one of the reasons I love neurofeedback, because when something hits the thalamus, it is literally a relay station, kind of like one of those, 4th of July fireworks that looks like it just goes everywhere. Every time I see that, I think thalamus right in the middle, and this boom going everywhere in your brain. And so the sense of smell is just so powerful.
So I'd love to get a little sciencey on that point for just a second, if you.
Oh, good. Go.
So those are our olfactory receptors, right? So one of the things they found in recent years is we actually have those all over our body, not just in our nose. So that's fascinating and has many applications, right? But secondly, I have a client and close friend who's never been able to smell, never had a sense of smell due to a medical condition he was born with.
Wow.
He can use the essential oils in an inhaler and get relief, even though he can't smell them. So he's using them for a specific issue and gets relief, even though he never smells them. Is that not fascinating?
Wow.
Yeah. So that shows you what those receptors.
Well, what's the issue? You're not revealing the person, but what's the issue?
You're trying to support respiratory health, because that is a concern for you. And that he's picking essential oils that really help breathing easier, open up the passageways. All of that gets better.
Well, that's what I want. I want our listeners to understand that oils are used on such a wide variety of platforms. And it is absolutely, I use this term neurological stacking, and anything that you can do, and smell is definitely in the stack, that can just really enhance many different parts of our physiology. So we've got the oils from what her son went through for immune health. And then we're talking about this other individual with respiratory distress. We use them wholeheartedly when my daughter had her brain injury, right? And I use them in here in the office for focus. I think joy, the bottle of joy is just like one of the greatest oils because you can just see everybody's mood just elevate when they come in.
I mean,
and bergamot will actually enhance the alpha brainwave, which is focused calm. So I want people to really understand how far reaching this really goes.
It's something you can learn. You can continue learning the entire time you're using oils. I think you can always learn something about them. You can, I tell people it can be overwhelming. You can be like, I don't know what to do. There's so many of them. And I said, let's pick your top 3 priorities. What are the 3 things that are your needs right now? And then let's talk about how those could be addressed. And the thing with oils, which is fascinating, but also overwhelming, is one oil can help a variety of issues. A variety of issues can be helped so one oil can help a variety of issues. And then also a part of that is if you have one issue, there's a variety of oils that can also help. There's not a one-to-one correlation with these oils and a particular issue you're trying to address or a priority you're trying to address. So that can be overwhelming. We live in a culture where we're used to going to somebody and it's very prescriptive. Use this amount, X number of times a day, X number of days for the month, right? So when you've been in a real prescriptive culture, there can be an uncertainty around kind of figuring things out and then it being, a little subjective, right? So I try to ease some of that, and make it less anxious in terms of finding solutions and say, what are your top priorities? And then for each of those, what would be my top 3 recommendations for you to start with? An example I give is lavender is calming for the vast majority of the people, like 85%. There's a small percentage out there that lavender does not calm them down. Well, guess what? You're going to know that pretty quickly. And I was...
Well, you could also do the biometric to help people see what oils. So she's actually got a little diagnostic tool that kind of works like a Fitbit, and it can scan your body and make suggestions. And as we bring a close to our podcast, I'll make sure everybody knows how to get in touch with Kelly. But before we conclude, I just want you touched on something about this cleanliness idea. And I think it's really important to get your professional opinion on this because lots of times I think people are thinking that it's just a sales promotion and it's not. The quality of anything really, really matters because you tell people about an oil and they run over to Target and see if what they've got. And it's not apples to apples. So Kelly, what is it about finding the right oil and like, how did you come to decide to utilize Young Living oils?
I was actually working with a doctor in California at the time, and he had said to me, I don't know much about these oils, but a lot of my patients are using them successfully, so they actually know more than I do, so I'm making some recommendations based on that. And I had specific questions about immune health, so that's what brought it up. And he goes, they're using it very successfully for immune support, preventative health, like being proactive, before you get sick, like using something on a daily basis. And he said, here's what I use. I use Young Living. And I was like, oh, okay. And I had heard about different oils through various sources, but I didn't really have anybody that I trusted talking to. And I wasn't really interested. I didn't really know enough to know they could work. So I just had not put a lot of research into it. So once I had that discussion with him, I started looking into oils. And then I realized he was right. They were pretty fascinating. But then I was like, okay, he said he is using Young Living and his patients are using that. So I started looking to what are the companies out there. And I landed at a place where I felt like Young Living had the highest quality product. not only from a free of synthetics and purity standpoint, but if you go to their website, there's a seed, SEED to seal, SEAL, seed to seal section. And they really get into detail the science behind not only how they choose where to plant their plants to make oils, but how they harvest and how they bottle them. So seed, the time from the seed goes in the ground till they seal it in a bottle. And I realized they had these amazing quality practices in place. And they owned their farms. And if there was a certain oil they needed to produce and harvest that was not in a place or land they had where they could grow it, they would partner. So like, for example, sacred frankincense, that variety we can only get out of Oman. We can't own ground in Oman. The government won't let us. The founder of our company spent years establishing a relationship with that government where they finally allowed us to come in and partner with people who had land where we could harvest sacred frankincense from the trees there. So we had a partnership there where we came in and we could consult and advise on soil quality, farming practices. We put distillation equipment on site, so it'd be distilled on site. And so if we don't own the farm or land itself, we partner so closely that we come in and we're controlling the time from that seed goes in the ground till it's distilled on site. So we're still controlling that whole process, even though we don't own the farm outright. And then every oil that's bottled, no matter where it is across the globe, is going through all the same testing. And our testing is anywhere, depending on the oil, from 19 to 21 tests for each oil done in triplicate 3 times. And not only do we test ourselves and have a body and a robust team of scientists, but we use independent labs that even the FBI uses. So we go out and we test, and there is so much, there's like 30% of our oils that we don't put on the market because they don't meet our standards. And typically those are sold to perfume companies because they're great for perfume. Pepsi and Coca-Cola buy them because a lot of your beverages you drink have essential oils in them for flavoring. But also, one of the things that I found fascinating is one more farming fact I want to tell you guys. I don't want to miss to tell you. Our library of how we produce each oil is so specific over these, 25 years of being here as a company that we get down to what is peak harvest time for each oil. Is depending on how much rain, depending on how little rain, depending on how long the leaves look like they're at time to harvest. Do we give it 2 more days? Do we give it 5 more days? We get very specific on harvesting at what's essential and right for that plant in the environment it's in. So to me, Young Living produced a product that had so much development and research behind it. It didn't seem to make sense to go anywhere else because I could not find another company that not only had some have some level of standard close to it, but that own their process from time the seed goes in the ground to the oil is bottled. That seed to seal was a game changer for me in terms of quality, and it also ends up being a game changer in how the product can work therapeutically for you versus just smell good. There's plenty of oils that smell good or might make you, feel a little better because you like it. It's like lighting a candle, right? But therapeutically, if it's got the right chemical constituents and the makeup is like it should be to be therapeutic, then it can actually affect past that blood-brain barrier and do the things it needs to do to support your body in a healing manner.
Well, what I like the most is how you, when you're talking about all of this, which is fantastic, but you personalize it. You are saying the way we do it, it's our process. And when somebody gets to that level of confidence, you know they've done their work, they've done their research, and I feel like we can all be very confident in the Young Living product. So, Kelly, I so appreciate you getting on the podcast with me and sharing your information, your knowledge, your compassion. And, you never know. You may touch somebody out there that says, I just want to have 5 minutes with this woman. How do people get in touch
Really,
with
right
you?
now, my email is the easiest way. So it's just my name, Kelly Haner, KELLYHANER @me.com. That's the easiest, quickest way to get in touch with me. And then I can shoot resources based on the questions or set up a phone call. But just Kelly Haner @me.com is the easiest, quickest way to get me.
Great. Well, we'll make sure that you get the links and you can share it with your people, because I think this is the other part of collaboration. When we come together and we share, but then we share it with our groups, and then it gets out there even more. And the more that we can share information, we can help more people. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast with me today. I really
Thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
me. I always enjoy our time together.
I know, it's always fun. So you guys, thanks so much for tuning in. This is Dr. Laura Hanson with Connect My Brain. If you have any questions, you're welcome to call the office. The number is 678-501-5172. Remember to go over to the website, connectmybrain.com. It's all the same name. I just love that part. You can get show notes. You can get different types of downloads, and make sure you subscribe and share this with your friends. We hope all of you have an amazing day, and we look forward to the next time.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Kelly.